Hello, and welcome back to Complexity Leadership for Practitioners. In this session, I'll be taking a look at the way that the scale of an organization affects the leadership modes using the 5-point leadership framework. First, let's define 3 scale models for an organization or business. I'm going to present a simple model for 3 sizes of businesses so that you can look at the scale effects. There is a value to examining the scale of a given organization, as each size has different characteristics which affect the leadership mode bias and the challenges of applying each mode. I'm going to use words like business, organization, enterprise, and so on interchangeably. Although they are different things, they're all the same from the perspective of this discussion, and sometimes it's nice to mix up what you're saying. Rather than define these business sizes by the number of employees, let's look at the leadership and the support structure that they all have. Small businesses tend to buy in many or all of their services, such as IT, HR, marketing, legal advice, accounting, and so on. This means that they have a transactional relationship with the service providers and do not lead them. By reducing the scope of the business to the area where they can add most value, the business is light and agile. The small business will normally operate in a tiny sector of a single market, providing services, products, and expertise which have fallen between areas covered by larger businesses. As with the small business, the medium-sized organization may outsource services which are impractical to incorporate into their teams. Areas such as logistics, legal expertise, and graphical design and marketing may be too different from their core expertise. They might require too much investment or may be needed only occasionally. Unlike a small business, the medium-sized business may employ people with specific skills to interface with these service providers. They may negotiate better deals than the small business can and may bring their own knowledge to the table, checking the quality of the service. The medium-sized business requires either a bigger market share or a small share from multiple markets when compared to the small business. They're able to take on contracts which require their own investment before payment. These tend to pay better and have more prestige than the work done by small businesses. Large businesses may be fully or substantially vertically integrated, self-sufficient for service functions and potentially some of their strategically important supply chain. They use their size to leverage economies of scale across the enterprise. This allows them to tailor the service functions to their exact needs. The large business will need many markets or a very large share of a substantial single market. They may also have an investment wing, using the ability of the organization to leverage good credit, to make money, and establish contingency funds and investments against the future market crashes and other emergent events. Now that I've given you a fairly simplistic model of a small, medium, and large organization, let's take a look at how the 5 leadership modes are affected by organizational scale. Although the 5 leadership modes remain unchanged in themselves, the way that different sizes of businesses use them is affected by scale. For each leadership mode, we can see them all here, the scale of the business brings a natural level of embedded leadership. As the company grows, the bias changes and the urgency also changes. This can mean that if you need high levels of a leadership mode in a business scale which does not naturally support it, it can be much more challenging to deliver effectively. This is the natural leadership mode bias for our small business. The higher the level shown for a given leadership mode, the easier it is to achieve the correct levels of that type of leadership in this scale of business. Small businesses should find direction easy to deliver. The business will have been set up with a purpose and a vision which was strong enough for the founding members to risk starting a business. This passion and drive needs to be passed on to the rest of the team. And while this transfer of enthusiasm isn't guaranteed, it is simpler to achieve at this scale than any other. Unless the business operates in a highly regulated sector, strategic administration is normally minimal at this scale. With so few employees, it becomes easy to agree on processes and pass them on by on-the-job training and word of mouth. Only where experience has shown that a written process is required will one normally be generated. Adaptive behaviour is common for small businesses. With little to buffer them against changes in the business environment, the unexpected becomes expected. The low levels of strategic administration brings flexibility as well as agility. That obviously helps with adaptive leadership. Enabling leadership should be a real strength in a business where the whole organisation is potentially the size of a single team. While success in this area is far from guaranteed, it is an environment where an empathetic and emotionally mature leader can forge a strong team with minimal effort. Because of the naturally unstable environment, it can be very challenging to conduct meaningful tactical administrative leadership beyond that dictated by the nature of the business. Resource management, for example, may be in the form of a shift rota or holiday cover. Detailed plans, where they do exist, will often be specific to targeted events. For example, a conference or a large customer order. Basically, any event needing detailed coordination beyond normal within the business. Now, moving on to the medium-sized business. As we move from small to medium-sized, the natural leadership mode bias changes. This leadership mode bias for a nominal medium-sized business is more evenly distributed than for a small one. As the business grows, it naturally tries to fill in the gaps in leadership which cause inefficiency or affect operation at a more regulated level. There's also an increase in experience in business at this size. Small businesses are often learning on the job, understanding things as they go. Medium-sized businesses may tend to have a mixture of experts and people who have been there since the beginning. Direction is slightly harder at this scale. While the business is still predominantly a monoculture, some levels of evolution and diversification are likely, moving the strategic vision away from a simple message of intent towards something slightly harder to convey. The business leader is more remote from the day-to-day workings of the organization, and their passion and drive, if they have it, may be conveyed in a less direct way than is possible in a small business. Strategic administration is growing stronger at this scale. Often, a push for wholesale process documentation will be triggered by, for example, the desire to achieve accreditation to an internationally recognized business standard, or perhaps by increasing demanding customer quality control and audits. This increase in strategic administration is both facilitated and precipitated by the integration of service functions such as IT, HR, finance, and so on. With an increase in strategic and tactical administration giving more governance, the natural levels of adaptive leadership slightly diminish. Enabling leadership is now localized into a team structure. In a medium-sized business, the teams tend to be tight-knit with low levels of turnover. In these circumstances, enabling leadership is not challenging as long as the team is capable and willing. As with small businesses, medium-sized businesses tend to recruit locally and will often have low staff turnover. This is an advantage, but can also create leadership challenges as the business grows if the staff become stuck at one point in development. Good quality tactical administration is facilitated at this scale by the rest of the leadership framework. Planning becomes important at this scale, although resource management may be limited in scope. Now, moving on to the large organization. As we move from a medium-sized business to a large organization, the natural bias of leadership modes shifts again. The sheer size of such organizations can make some aspects of leadership challenging. They may comprise many medium-sized businesses incorporated into large business units within a much bigger group structure. Direction in these organizations is very difficult. With too many areas of expertise and too many markets to address, finding a single unifying vision can be extremely challenging. Many businesses at this scale present a strategic vision which simply translates as make more money each year. This is not inspiring, and it fails to address the history and skills embedded in the individual business units. The drive for centralization and unity is a major obstacle for achieving common purpose. Treating the organization as a loose group of different businesses can enable each to have a compelling vision, but then the benefits of unity are lost. This is the centralization-decentralization paradox as discussed in an earlier training session. Strategic administration is strong at this scale by necessity. No longer can it be assumed that teamwork and familiarity will negate the need for process. Bureaucracy is a real risk as the drive for control, especially financial control, overrides the desire for efficiency and agility. Flexibility, which is the ability to make different decisions based on the situation, is greatly reduced, slowing progress in many areas. While emergent events still happen at this scale, reacting to them in an agile manner is a challenge. The high levels of process and control make quick responses really difficult, especially if money needs to be spent or structural changes are necessary. Enabling leadership becomes more challenging at this scale, with much higher worker mobility, both within the organisation and out into the rest of industry, and regular structural changes within the business itself. Building effective teams becomes a greater challenge. As with strategic administration, tactical administration is strong by necessity at this scale. Large organisations tend to take on large projects requiring substantial teams of project managers, planners, or other tactical administrators. The challenge for such projects is having sufficient enabling leadership to ensure the best path is being taken towards the goal. Without this, the tactical administrative leaders will be powerless to deliver as required. So that's quite a lot to take in. So let's summarize the key points. Different scenarios within an organization can affect the natural drive towards or away from a leadership mode. If the nature of the business is biased towards a leadership mode, that does not guarantee success, but it does make success easier to achieve. Where the scale and structure of a business makes a leadership mode challenging, much more effort will be required for success in that area of leadership. For instance, in a very large business, it can be very difficult to explain the need for enabling leadership. The large businesses tend to be very focused on control. Very small businesses probably will struggle to understand the need for high levels of control in the form of strategic administration and tactical administration, but they will naturally appreciate the value of enabling leadership. The important point is that these biases are not cast in stone. By strategic development of the business structure, the biases can be modified to suit your purposes. This could be thought of as the culture of the organisation. Deciding to do things differently and embedding that difference into the very fabric of the organisation. That concludes part 7 of the series. I hope you found it interesting. Look out for more in the future.